3 verse 1. No domain expansion, low output, a fried brain, a feeling of defeat in his mind. But even losing an arm did not stop Satoru freaking Gojo from bodying his opponents.
That's why he's the GOAT! The GOAT!
Jujutsu Kaisen Chapter 234 is steering the fight between the strongest towards its end, as both of them are on their last legs. However, the winner is still unclear. Well, in my book, he is my winner, but you know, we need some copium. After all, even reverse curse technique can't heal the fraud allegations after Sukuna's actions in this chapter, because continuing the fight from the previous one, Sukuna had unleashed another 10 Shadows Shikigami called Agito, aside from Mahoraga, making the situation incredibly unfair for Gojo. Everyone in the community was wondering the same thing. Wait, bruh, why is nobody helping Gojo? Jumping Sukuna right now is the best alternative, right? Just like all of us in the community, Gojo's students have been sweating buckets every other minute that goes by, especially my man Yuta, as he must live up to all the hype about being second to Gojo. Well, Akatami saw all the clowning over Yuta being scared, but he finally declares he's entering the fight. Yuta was never scared of joining the fray. He was actually scared for Gojo and losing his sensei. Let's not forget that it was Gojo who brought back purpose in Yuta's life, gave him a place to call home and people to call his friends. Remember in Jujutsu Kaisen 0, he was ready to give up his life in order to take down Suguru Geto for hurting his friends. Or the fact that he promised to kill Kenjaku for Gojo so he doesn't have to feel the same pain of killing his best friend again. So it's clear that he doesn't have a single selfish bone in his body, and he has been ready for this moment since the beginning. However, before Yuta could walk out, Kashimo stops him, asking him not to interfere. The man really said this jumping Sukuna shit is weak and that Yuta is not even next in line.
So true.
Kashimo told us that he's saving his ultimate single-use technique to face off against Sukuna, as that was the deal he made with Kenjaku to join the Culling Games 400 years ago. This was a period of time where Kashimo massacred any opponent during his period, never meeting a worthy challenger until Sukuna was mentioned. But by the looks of it, Yuta is surging with curse energy. Just think about it. If Kashimo and Yuta do end up fighting, Yuta will be able to copy Kashimo's one-use curse technique, even without the reinforcement from Binding Vow. So far, the conditions for Yuta copying curse techniques are unknown. However, in his most recent fight, he copied Uro's Thin Icebreaker in chapter 180 effortlessly, adding another to his arsenal. Which leads to your next question. Can Yuta copy Shrine or Limitless?
Shit, I don't even know. Like, I can't even tell you that.
As a result, Yuta's moment hasn't arrived just yet, because Hakairi interrupted Yuta by stating that Kashimo is correct.
Nani?
Well, Gojo had also left behind a huge condition for his students to enter the battle. He only allowed them to do so if he got weaker than all of them. To put this into perspective, even with all the disadvantages from his fight, including straight up brain damage, no domain expansion, and now one arm, Gojo is still stronger than the likes of Yuta and Hakairi. Mind you, Yuta has more curse energy reserves than Gojo. Maki has heavenly restriction. Hakairi's domain is absolutely broken, and Kashimo's ace attack. So yeah, this shows exactly why Gojo is the honored one and why the other sorcerers can barely hold their own against battered and beaten up Sukuna, as he scales to him as an equal. Remember Ryu, the sorcerer with the highest curse energy output in all of the Culling Games? He tells Yuta that he's too soft. Ryu explains that to reach the level of Sukuna, whom he likens to a calamity and natural disaster, one needs to be more than just a sorcerer or a cursed spirit. This is reinforced by Sukuna's own response to Itadori in chapter 214 when he asked Sukuna why does he spread misery. His response was, why are you so weak and cling to life, continuing on a path that leads to destruction. This is where Yuji was reminded that people like Sukuna will always be curses and killing humans is natural for him. These people shed all likeness to others and only work through overwhelming aggression, as Ryu put it. However, it is important to note that by overwhelming aggression, it means to win at any cost. This is what Sukuna, the king of curses, displays. We all know that he would have died 4 times over by now in his fight against Gojo, but it's his utility of the 10 Shadows curse technique that Megumi would have never been able to do, and his expertise and talent and power, which is making him an equal to Gojo to win this battle. Think about it. In the end, if Sukuna does win, what will people remember? Sukuna won, and history is written by the victor.
Sensational.
Sukuna has always thought of winning, no matter what happens, even displaying the difference between someone who truly wants to win and who doesn't in his fight against Jogo. Remember that Jogo had accepted that he could never square up to Gojo and Sukuna. That's why he didn't bother expanding his domain expansion, as he had PTSD from his defeat earlier. Sukuna told him you could have burnt the world asunder, and if you didn't flock together with other cursed spirits. Gojo too, through his fight against Toji, displayed his unwavering desire to be victorious. He himself stated that he wasn't fighting for Riko anymore. It was his desire to be strong. It was that need to win that made these two calamities. Even so, Maki states that if there's anyone going next, it will be her, reminding Yuta of his role as an insurance policy in this fight. If Gojo is defeated, Yuta is the best bet for their side to win, and choosing to go now only to be defeated will take out a massive advantage for them. However, following the theme of choices having consequences and are therefore a gamble, Yuta correctly points out that if they win right now, there will be no need for an insurance, where Yuji supports this idea. But that's when the grown-ups intervene. Yuta and Yuji are thinking with their emotions instead of their brains. They need to understand that Gojo and Sukuna's definition of victory are very different. For Gojo, it's just that he has to defeat Sukuna and leave Kenjaku for the rest of them. But in the case of Sukuna, despite winning against Gojo, he will have no second to rest to go up against all of them without a break. And that's when Hakari points out what our community has been calling out every week, that Sukuna possesses a trump card for anyone who tries to join the battle. And well, this cannon fodder also exists. And speaking of Gojo's teammates, Anime Drip is selling a shirt right now with all of them on it. The link will be in the pinned comment and description. You can get 20% off using the code Gojo. Their analysis isn't wrong. Sukuna has a few surprises left. You know, the redacted fire curse technique open, Yodazu's gift, full out shrine, the divine weapons from the Heian era, and his true form. Remember, he isn't returning to his true form just yet, despite 3 characters asking him on separate occasions. It's because he wants every advantage over Gojo. He wants it to make it look like that he's killing Megumi, as this is a psychological battle just as much as it is a physical one. Now you may say, oh, Sukuna is holding back in this fight because he knows he has to fight others. But again, that's not true. Gojo and Sukuna did not come into this fight with a single thought of defeat, and they know they are unfathomably stronger than the rest of the sorcerers. Even in this state, as the chapter implies, Gojo is still more powerful than them, which applies to Sukuna as well. Neither of them needs to hoard resources, because if they weren't going all out in this fight, they would not be able to experience true satisfaction and purge their loneliness that comes with being the strongest, as the chapter itself states.
No, he's got a point.
At any rate, it will be disastrous for anyone to jump in right now for Gojo, because he'd have to fight for himself as well as protect his allies. As Kenjaku mentioned in chapter 90, that Gojo is at his peak when he fights alone. Hence, right now, when Sukuna cannot give it his all, it is the best circumstance for their victory. And my man Kashimo, in an absolute goated way, whatever happens, it's lame to interfere, pointing out that modern sorcerers forgot it's not only their lives, their honor is on the line as well. Sukuna mentioned to Yorozu in chapter 217 that victory means everything, and the equivalent to losing a fight is death itself. However, if push comes to shove, the idea that Gojo's students will save him is very much in line with his character's purpose. We already know from chapter 11 that his dream is to foster strong allies who will fight alongside him. Even in his first encounter with Megumi, Gojo asks Megumi to grow strong and not to be left behind. Hence, it is heartwarming to know that he has reliable and strong people to fall back on in the worst case scenario, as he didn't want anyone to be left alone, something he had experienced himself. In contrast, Kenjaku is using this opportunity for the best outcome of his ultimate plan to create a new monster for the painting he envisions. Unlike Gojo, Sukuna's ally is only bound to him due to a binding vow which highlights their different ideals. Speaking of which, Sukuna embodies this by doing a 3vs1, where Maki stated in JJK 0 that a tactic of curses is to gang up on the opponent when they are weak. But Gojo is still Gojo, and he figures out that Agito is actually Nue, who has inherited 3 other Shikigami. Yup, this beast right here is almost half of 10 Shadows combined into one. Nue, Great Serpent, Madoka, and ladies and gentlemen, we finally have the name of the final unknown Shikigami of the 10 Shadows, Moon Tiger, which I must say is an appropriate name because we are never seeing it again. Gojo started beating the shit out of this chimera, even landing a black flash that destroyed its abdomen. However, since it has powers of the dear Madoka, it possesses the reverse curse technique, instantly healing itself. Even if it is not adapted to Limitless like Mahoraga, Madoka can break through curse techniques, as we saw in chapter 219 against Yorozu, and even heal Sukuna. Hence, Gojo concludes that he will have to one-shot Agito first to prevent Sukuna from recovering. As for why we're never seeing Moon Tiger again, well, totality is different from a combined Shikigami attack like Well's Unknown Abyss, a combo of Nue and Toad that Megumi used in chapter 17. Even if combined Shikigami get destroyed, the actual Shikigami don't get damaged, like they would if they were killed in their original forms. Remember that one of the divine dogs died in chapter 6, and Sukuna killed the Great Serpent in his first fight with Megumi in chapter 9, so Megumi could not summon either of them again. When a Shikigami gets damaged, the other Shikigami inherits its powers, just like the other divine dog received the powers of the destroyed one, turning into totality. So Agito being the totality of 4 Shikigami means none of the other Shikigami exist on their own anymore. And Gojo destroying it? Well, rest in peace, the newest 10 Shadow Shikigami. Because despite being all that, Agito is barely a threat to Gojo, as he completely messes around with it, calling it repetitive and a one-trick pony. However, if he kills Agito, the chosen remaining Shikigami will inherit all of its powers, making it difficult to even imagine how dangerously powerful a fully combined Shikigami will be. Throw in Mahoraga if it's defeated too, and that's some nightmare fuel right there. It's no wonder why Sukuna was so intrigued when he discovered 10 Shadows, calling it a wasted treasure. But wait a second, where the hell is the so-called King of Curses? My man is hiding in the shadows. Sukuna is letting Mahoraga and Agito do all his work. He admits that he's keeping Gojo engaged so that he can't use Hollow Purple attack because he wouldn't survive it anymore. The bad news for Sukuna fans just doesn't stop because he even states that the only reason he could tank the 200% Hollow Purple at the beginning of the fight was because of him being 2.5 miles away. So despite reinforcing his arms, he lost one of them, only adding credibility to the fact that a Hollow Purple at point blank range means Sukuna is dead meat. Poetic, I would say, given how much he is into cannibalism, you know what I'm saying? However, as Gojo would put it, Sukuna is being protected like a kid by his parents, Mahoraga and Agito. Literally. Sukuna commands Mahoraga that it's not what I want to see. You're my shadow, not Megumi's. Show me what you've got. Megumi's life update just got worse. Not only is he a vegetable if he ever comes back, but he's gonna wake up with no Shikigami to his technique. Anyway, this statement from him literally rang a bell in Mahoraga that there is no doubt that Sukuna has now completely made Ten Shadows his own and can use it in ways Megumi wouldn't even begin to imagine. He's not only tamed it, unlike Megumi, but he's also pouring in vast amounts of curse energy to make it more powerful than it can even imagine, which is why Mahoraga shouldn't disappoint him. And boy, does it not. Because with one spin of the wheel, it copied Sukuna's overpowered dismantle technique and cut off Gojo's right arm!
Fix it, fix it, fix it!
This is terrible news because Gojo fans watching him get cut up everywhere, even his arm at this point, yet somehow his freaking shirt is still unscathed. Why is his shirt still intact? Where's his clothes made? Tell me, please.
I'd rather die before I come in love.
Okay, but the actual bad news is that Gojo's healing through reverse curse technique is awfully weak and slow right now, and he has to fight two beasts. This is the exact moment Sukuna chose to jump from the shadows and thrash Gojo together, landing a clean kick right in his face. But Gojo brutally bodies Agito, even mocking it because it is too weak to be in this fight, and hits it with a maximum output blue attack. It's the beginning of the end. 41 seconds from now, Agito is destroyed. Shinjuku is completely ravaged, all from Gojo firing another Hollow Purple. On top of that, Gojo is healing his arm in this panel that you might have missed. So even though we are 11 chapters into this fight, no one actually knows the outcome of it, as both characters are on their final lifeline. The red flag for Sukuna is set in place because another Hollow Purple would be fatal for him. But this fight has eerie parallels to Netero vs Miriam. Since Gojo has lost an arm, would he lose a leg next? The action of Gojo annihilating Shinjuku and spelling out Sukuna's end is also similar to Netero detonating a bomb that sealed Miriam's fate. And we already know that Akutami is a huge fan of Hunter x Hunter and even referenced it multiple times in this fight. So it won't be out of the question for him to take some inspiration for the ending climax of what is meant to be. But to enjoy more peak fiction, why not check out our video regarding Boruto's timescape? It has finally begun after 7 years.